This man fills the tub with plane models. He peels off the logo, sticks it on a fake check. Then he puts on a pilot uniform and walks into a bank. The clerk is about to check the check. He quickly flatters her. "You're so pretty. Your eyes are charming." She actually forgets the check. He gets his first money. From then on, he becomes bolder. In just a year, he cons banks out of over $4 million. And he's only 16. He is Frank, the most audacious con man in US history. He pretends to be a pilot, flies free to over 20 countries, 3 million kilometers. He pretends to be a doctor, even runs a hospital. He pretends to be a lawyer, becomes assistant prosecutor. Every time the FBI chases him, he still escapes. But his path starts with life's own deception. Frank once had a happy family. His father was successful, praised by the mayor. His mother was beautiful, caring. His parents seemed deeply in love. His father often said, "I beat 200 rivals to win your mom." Frank thought this happiness would last. One morning, his father woke him to rent a tuxedo, but the shop owner refused to open early. His father stopped him, pulled out a cheap necklace. "You dropped this in the lot." The trick worked. Frank got an expensive tux, even posed as a chauffeur. The show fooled a bank manager into coming out to greet them. But that day, they ran to all the banks. No one lent money. His father had evaded taxes. They lost everything, car, villa, and moved into a tiny apartment. On Frank's 16th birthday, his father gave him $25 and 50 blank checks. With checks, you can have everything. Frank actually made it true. Without money, Frank left his prep school for a public school. On the first day, bullies mocked him, said he dressed like a substitute teacher. That remark gave him an idea. He wrote his name on the board, shouted. The class fell silent. He punished the bully, scared everyone, even tricked the real teacher out. He taught French for a whole week, gave homework, even held a parent meeting. If not discovered, he would have taken students to a bakery in France. Parents were called. His mother was furious, but his father was amused. That night, Frank saw something worse. At home, a strange man. His mother claimed it was business, but Frank knew business never needed locked doors. He found a coat button. The man laughed it off, saying he dropped it. Frank knew it was a lie. Soon after, another stranger came, this time a lawyer. He told Frank, "Your parents are divorcing. You must choose." Frank froze. The loving couple he knew was breaking apart. He ran, carrying only $25, took a train to New York, but within days, the money was gone. To survive, he forged checks, scratching numbers, pasting names, but every bank spotted the fakes. No trick worked. Just as he lost hope, he saw a pilot, and that gave him an idea. At that time, pilots had the highest status. Stewardesses surrounded them. They lived in luxury hotels. People admired them. Even kids asked for autographs. Frank decided to become a pilot, but he wouldn't waste years on exams. Instead, he posed as a student reporter. He interviewed an airline executive. Question after question, every detail of a pilot's life. The executive, unguarded, spilled everything. Frank knew a license was key. Before leaving, he tricked the man into giving his license, saying he needed to copy it for the paper. With theory in hand, he moved to practice. He called Pan Am, claimed he lost his uniform. They gave him the supplier's address. At the shop, he wrote down an ID number from the license. No cash, no check. Payment deducted from salary. Frank walked out with a free pilot uniform. Wearing it, he strutted down the street. People's stares made him feel invincible. Banks too. With the uniform, checks cashed easily. Managers who once ignored him now smiled. He discovered the uniform itself was a walking ATM. Personal checks capped at $100. Payroll checks at $300. Back home, Frank studied. He printed fake payroll checks, peeled logos off plane models, pasted them on, pressed them in books to dry. Then he marched into banks, targeted young clerks, distracted them with sweet talk. To his surprise, it worked. Checks cleared, cash in hand. Soon, he scaled up. He learned airports cashed checks too. One day at the airport, he discovered another perk. Pilots could fly free on company flights. He boarded for the first time, even stepped into the cockpit. He was nervous, but answered every question smoothly. With an air hostess's help, he found his seat. Later, he charmed that same hostess. Just like his father once did, he offered a cheap necklace. "You must have dropped this." They shared his first affair in the sky. Meanwhile, money poured in. To make his fakes stronger, he targeted a naive bank clerk. With charm and uniform, he won her trust. She revealed check printing details. Frank bought an old coding printer. With it, his checks looked real. Life was smooth. He treated his father to a fancy meal, even gifted a convertible, hoping to win back his mother. But his father, now a debtor, refused the gift to avoid trouble. When asked where he was flying next, Frank answered, "Hollywood." The father understood. It was all fraud. But instead of blame, he praised him. He told the old mouse story. 2 mice fell into milk. One gave up and drowned. The other struggled until it churned butter and climbed out. "I'm the second mouse," he said. He wanted Frank to be the same, but behind every mouse, there's a cat, and Frank's cat was FBI agent Carl. At that time, banks took 2 weeks to spot fake checks. Frank cashed one and was long gone before they knew. In under a year, he forged millions. Checks spread nationwide. Economic crime was rare. Forgery detection was weak. No one cared, except Carl. With only 2 agents, he followed the trail. One day, Carl traced a check to a hotel. He kicked in the door with gun drawn. The room was empty, only tools on the desk. He knew he had the right place. Then, the bathroom door opened. Frank walked out, calm as ever. Facing the gun, he lied, claimed he was CIA. He said he was also hunting the forger. Too late, he said. My colleague already took the suspect. Carl demanded ID. Frank handed him a wallet without hesitation. But just as Carl was about to check, Frank pointed outside the window. There they are, my partner and the suspect. Carl looked. It was only a father and son Frank had passed on the stairs. Frank looks calm, but inside he's panicking. He gulps water, steadies himself, then flips it back, demanding to see Carl's badge. He pretends to check, then says he'll take evidence downstairs. He even leaves his wallet behind, making Carl believe he'll return any minute. Frank walks out. Carl exhales, sits on the bed, still uneasy. He opens the wallet. Inside only business cards, no ID. By the time he realizes the trick, Frank is already gone with the files. Carl slams the wallet down, furious. Carl's boss warns him to quit the chase. You've got 12 years on the job, a fraud book, a promotion ahead. Keep failing here, and you'll lose it all. But Carl refuses. He's seen Frank's face, and con men fear nothing more than being unmasked. Meanwhile, Frank strikes again. He poses as a reporter, interviews an airline executive. The man rants about a scammer draining the company dry. Frank, to his surprise, feels proud. His tricks even made headlines. The press calls him the Sky 007. His vanity soars. To look more like James Bond, Frank buys tailored suits, even a silver gray sports car. With charm and style, he steps into a hotel, draws in a homeless beauty. They click fast, head upstairs. But before things heat up, she demands a deposit. They settle at $1,000. Frank has a $1,000 check, but pulls out $1,400, saying he's got no change. As expected, she offers to find change. And just like that, he cashes $400 and gets her for the night. On Christmas Eve, Carl is still working late when Frank suddenly calls. Frank apologizes for tricking him, says he's in room 113 of a Vegas hotel. Carl doesn't buy it, assumes it's another game. Instead, he asks, "How did you know I wouldn't check your wallet?" Frank quotes his father's Yankees theory. They win, not because players are better, but because rivals focus on the pinstripes and miss the real game. I waved the wallet, kept your eyes on me. By the time you looked, I was gone. Carl shrugs, unmoved, and hits back. This isn't an apology. You're just alone on Christmas with no one to call. The words cut deep. Frank snaps, slams the phone. But he really was in room 113 this time. No lie. Carl bursts out laughing, like he just won. Soon, Carl gets a break. He notices Frank's aliases all match comic book characters. That means no record, just a kid. Add in the Yankees clue, likely from New York. He orders a sweep of runaway teens. It doesn't take long. He finds Frank's mother, recognizes his face in a yearbook. The mother panics, offers to pay it back, until she hears the sum, over $1.3 million. She freezes. Carl then goes to Frank's father. The man tries to cover, but Carl finds Frank's letters, notes down an address. At the apartment, he finds nothing, just a Harvard medical diploma on the wall. Following the lead, he tracks Frank to a hospital, but again, too late. By then, Frank is living rich in Atlanta, like a young Gatsby, but wealth can't cure loneliness. At the hospital, he meets Brenda, a timid girl with braces, scolded to tears by her boss. Frank's con takes a new turn. This time, he'll pose as a doctor. Back home, Frank forges again. He cuts out a Harvard logo, pastes it on a blank diploma. Just like that, he becomes a Harvard doctor and lands a night shift job. He thinks nights are easy, few patients, simple to fake. At work, he watches medical films, copies doctor's tone. Most of the time, he just stays with Brenda. But one night, an emergency arrives. Blood everywhere. Frank pretends calm, throws questions to interns, then dumps the work on them. He hides in the office, vomiting. Turns out he faints at the sight of blood. Dr. Life isn't easy. He swears to quit. The chance comes quick. Brenda cries in bed, saying she wasn't a good girl before, even got kicked out by her lawyer father. Hearing lawyer, Frank lights up. He says past doesn't matter, then proposes marriage, offering to face her family together. By the time Carl comes to the hospital, Frank is gone, already with Brenda's family. When asked where he'll work after marriage, Frank says he'll switch to law. He claims he graduated from Berkeley Law. Bad luck, the father is an alum. A few questions later, the lie cracks. Alone with Frank, the father demands the truth. Frank drops the act, I'm no doctor, no lawyer, nothing, just a man who loves your daughter. To his surprise, the honesty works. The father admits he was once poor too and admires Frank's guts. He even helps him get a law license, landing him a spot as assistant prosecutor. Living in Brenda's house, Frank feels family warmth. Watching her parents wash dishes side by side, he recalls his own parents dancing. For the first time, he dreams of quitting scams. At Christmas, Frank meets his father. Excited, he says, "I'm getting married. I have money now. I'll give you and Mom a wedding seat. We'll live like before." But his father crushes him. "Your mother's remarried. Life won't go back." Frank can't believe it. Just 2 years, and his mother left them. He can buy anything except his broken family. Frank leaves, angry and broken. Another Christmas Eve, Carl waits by the phone. This time, Frank calls, begging for peace. "I'm getting married. Let me live a normal life." But with over $4 million in fraud, normal life is impossible. He's like a car with no brakes. Crash or surrender. Carl tracks him through the engagement news. Sensing danger, Frank confesses to Brenda and tells her when to run. Then he climbs out the window, escaping just before Carl arrives. Only Brenda is left, crying. 2 days later, Frank shows up at the airport. Brenda comes too, but he spots someone whispering in her ear. Police everywhere. She betrayed him. He slips back into the car and drives off. Carl bets Frank will try to flee abroad, fills the airport with agents. But Frank has a plan. Fake passport, pilot uniform, pretend to recruit stewardesses. He walks in with 8 blonde women. Police stare at them, never noticing Frank. Outside, he even hires a decoy in uniform to play him. By the time Carl realizes, Frank is already on a plane overseas. 7 months pass, no trace, until Carl finds his fake checks circling the world. To his shock, the forgeries are so perfect even airlines can't tell. Yet no new cases are reported. Carl concludes, Frank must be low on checks. Before he prints more, Carl prepares to catch him at the source. Carl consults an old checkmaster. He confirms Frank must be using old European machines. Hearing Europe, Carl recalls Frank's mother once said Manche, France, was where she and Frank's father fell in love. Family always tied Frank down. If he ran abroad, he'd go there. Another Christmas Eve, Carl walks into the factory in Manche. Frank is printing checks. To Carl's surprise, Frank looks excited, like waiting for him. Carl warns, "Put on the cuffs yourself. That'll cut your sentence. Run, and 20 French cops will shoot you dead." Frank thinks it's a trick, asks him to swear on his daughter's name. Carl swears. Frank puts on the cuffs, but outside, no cops. He laughs. Carl is a liar too, yet suddenly, French police surround them. Carl pleads, he surrendered. Frank is taken away, but Carl promises, "I'll bring you home." 2 years later, Christmas again. Carl finishes the extradition. Frank is locked in a dark cell, tortured by the environment. He still tries to escape, crawls a few meters before guards drag him back. This time, he's cuffed and shackled all the way, until boarding the US plane. On board, Carl finally asks, "How did you pass the bar exam?" Frank teases, asks for Carl's role in exchange. Carl refuses. As the plane nears landing, Frank begs to see his father first. Carl breaks the news. "Your father's dead." Frank collapses. He cries and bangs inside the bathroom, then goes silent. Carl senses danger, kicks the door open. Frank is gone. He crawled through the plane structure to the landing gear. Frank runs to his mother's house. Through the window, he sees her new family, a little half-sister, warm and happy inside. Outside, the cold cuts deep. He realizes he has no home. Police sirens close in. This time, he doesn't run. He raises his hands and tells Carl, "Take me away." Court refuses to treat him as a juvenile. He's sentenced to 12 years in max security, full isolation. Every Christmas, Carl visits, bringing comics. To him, Frank is still a kid. One day, Carl shows him a new counterfeit case. Frank glances once, then says the forger is a bank teller because of stamp marks on the numbers. Carl gets an idea. Soon, he brings his boss. Frank demonstrates. No doubt, he's an expert. The FBI hires him, with Carl as his guardian, until he finishes his term. The fraud kid turns into a government worker, but office life bores Frank. He can't sit still. Seeing pilot uniforms in stores, he feels the old itch. He cuts his mugshot, packs a bag, prepares to vanish. Carl catches up, but doesn't stop him. He trusts Frank will come back Monday. Monday, 10 a.m. Frank hasn't shown. Carl worries, but keeps working. Suddenly, a hand grabs his magnifier. "What if I take a look?" Frank is back. Carl smiles, like a proud father. He asks again, "How did you pass the bar exam?" This time, Frank tells the truth. "I didn't cheat. I studied 2 weeks. Then I passed.